Hilary is a psychic medium, but that wasn't always part of the plan. After a series of experiences she couldn't explain, including receiving messages from someone she had lost, everything in her life began to shift. Today, she works as a full-time medium, connecting people with loved ones who have passed. In this episode, we're diving into how she came into her abilities, what mediumship actually looks and feels like, and some of the experiences that made her realize there was something she couldn't ignore. Hilary, welcome to Meant to Be Heard.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. So thank you.
Yay! I'm so glad that you're here. It's so fun that we connected. You connected with us from a call out that we did on our Instagram and TikTok saying, hey, if you have had a spiritually transformative experience, reach out to us. Maybe you can go on the podcast. And you reached out and here we are. So I'm super excited to talk to you. You know, you are a psychic medium. And I just want to say that I haven't shared a lot of my own personal spiritual story yet, but at a time in my life, all I wanted to do was become a medium. And the reason being is I just felt like it was such a impactful, fulfilling career to be able to give people healing messages, messages of hope, and just messages of love from the other side. I was like, there couldn't be any cooler job in my mind than doing that. So to talk to you today is really, really cool. But you haven't always been a medium. You say you're self-taught. And so I want to start with your upbringing. Did you grow up in a religious household, in a spiritual household? Do you have any family members who are mediums?
So I actually grew up non-religious, non-spiritual. There's no one else in my family, at least that I'm aware of, that kind of does this. So that's part of the reason that I'm self-taught. And I'm very much kind of on my own when it comes to the family dynamic around spirituality. So yeah, I experienced death at the age of 5 for the first time when my grandmother passed away. And very quickly, I started kind of questioning what the point of life was. And I realize now how big of a thought that was for a 5-year-old. But I also didn't have anyone to kind of talk to about it. Death happened and we just moved on and didn't talk about things in my family. So I always hoped and wished there was something more, but I didn't really know what to kind of believe in until I was older and things really changed.
Okay, so it wasn't something that was necessarily talked about, but these were just internalized questions that you were having of what is the purpose of all of this once you lost someone significant?
Yeah. And I had little experiences here and there, after our family dog passed away, hearing, her walking or her chains clinking, her drinking water. But we didn't have another dog at the time. So to me, I thought, well, what is that? But again, didn't know who to talk to or didn't know what to make of it and kind of just left it as it was.
Okay. How old were you at that time?
I would have been about 10 years old about that time. So yeah.
Okay. Was there any other experiences that you had as a child that looking back, you're like, oh, that was maybe a clue, or that was an intuitive nudge, or maybe that was a gift that was trying to poke through?
Absolutely. There's one thing that I kind of really stuck out is when I remember seeing a specific person at our home. And this was a new house. I was about 3 years old. I don't remember who the person was. And as I described this person, a family member didn't know who it was. Years later, I kind of talked about it again. And all of a sudden, another family member said, oh, is this the person you're thinking of? And I went, yeah. I found out they had actually just recently passed at around the same time as we moved into that house.
Who was it?
It was a family member's partner, spouse. So to me as a 3-year-old, it didn't mean anything to me, really, at the time. But looking back now, I went, oh my gosh, because I didn't have photos around to see who this person was on a regular basis. So I just didn't know who it was.
And so you're seeing this person, like actually seeing them. Are they communicating to you, saying anything to you, or?
That I remember from when I was younger. But as I started to get older and even through my teenage years, there was a lot of what I now say is my intuition and my spirit guides telling me things that I look back on and go, oh, that's what that was. But at the time, I thought it was normal. And I also just didn't understand it. And I thought maybe other people kind of experienced it. And then a few years later, I lost my friends.
Can you walk us through that experience and what happened there?
Absolutely. So, just to preface as well, I grew up in a really small community where everyone kind of knew everyone. So, I was at work, and by the time I got home and I found out the news that my friend and her sister had been in a car accident, this was at the end of July, on July 24th, 2009. I just want to go back for a second here as part of my story. The first time I ever went to a psychic or a medium was in February 2009, just a few months before my friend passed. And this was when I was still a little skeptical and not sure what to believe in. But death had kind of followed me since my childhood of losing other family members and friends and stuff. Um,
Is that what inspired you to go see the psychic? You had lost significant people in your life and you still had this question of like, what's the deal? What's going on? Or do you remember what inspired you to even look for a psychic medium?
I do actually. My now ex-husband, when I first met him, it was, I think, about 5 or 6 months into us dating, he ended up telling me about this psychic that he had gone to. And he'd gone several times over the years. And she had told him all about me, right down to the color of my hair, the career I was going to be doing. A lot of things I was like, whoa, what? Like, threw me off a little bit. So I was curious and I thought, well, maybe I'll try for myself. So I went in and I can't remember a whole lot now. It was a long time ago. But the one thing that really stuck out was she told me I'd have my own business one day. And in that moment, I had a vision of myself giving readings, sitting across from the table, being the one to do the readings. And I immediately thought, that would be so cool, but I can't do that. There's no way. And my ego took over very quickly. And I started thinking about all these other things that I was doing with my career, which was cooking. And I thought, about all the paths I could take with that for my own business, and kind of left it at that. So we fast forward to July 24th, 2009. My friend and her younger sister were in a head-on car accident. Her younger sister lost her life immediately, and my friend unfortunately passed away a few days later. So after her passing and her sister's passing, a lot of strange things started happening, is how I like to put it. So, for instance, I started waking up at 2:47 a.m. and I couldn't figure out why. And this happened, I believe it was 3 or 4 days in a row. And I can never remember what.
Specifically,
Specific
247.
2:47. And it wasn't until the last night. And now I know it was my friend telling me. But at the time, I just still didn't quite get it. That was her. But that was the date of their car accident, the 24th day of the 7th month. And I went, wow, okay, I get it. There's something going on here. You have to be here. That was my wishful thinking, right? As most of us do, especially when we lose someone close to us and so young and unexpectedly.
But also, like, what are the chances that you're going to wake up multiple days in the row
Yeah.
at 2:47 exactly? And also, you looked at the clock and remembered that, right?
Yes.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, so it was very specific. And that's why by the third or fourth day when it finally happened, it was like an aha moment of, now I understand why I'm waking up at this time. So again, things kind of happened like that. I started kind of having little visions, I guess, or my inner knowing, which I now know, or my claircognizance and things. I knew little details about the car accident that weren't publicly known, which again was very difficult because we're all from a small community. Unfortunately, it was their, I believe, uncle and one of their cousins that was the first on scene as a first responder. That's the type of close community it is. So after that, I ended up having a few dreams of Chantel and even Haley. Her sister came through as well. And I just woke up in tears. And I just thought that was the most real hug that I could ever experience from her. And just the whole energy, the whole moment, I can't, it's so hard to explain how real and vivid it was at the time. So when I went to explain this to a friend of mine, I was told, don't tell anybody that. They're going to think you're crazy. And this was only not even 6 months after my friend had passed. So either way, I was grieving. So,
and how old were you, Hilary? Did you say like 19 or?
So my friend Chantal was 19. I was just on the cusp of turning 19 in September. And then Chantel's sister, Haley, was only 15 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so these dreams you're having of these friends, do they feel different than a regular dream that you're
Yes.
having most nights?
Oh yeah, 100%. And that's why, I was trying to explain to even my boyfriend slash soon to be husband at the time, when I would tell him about these experiences, he had that level of understanding because of his own background with the psychic readings. But if I were to talk to certain family members about it, again, it was not received very well. Let's put it that way.
That's so hard because you're already grieving and then you have almost this moment of reprieve, right? Like a little bit of, oh my gosh, I feel like she was here, or I hugged her, and then people are just immediately shutting you down. That would be so difficult. You're like, what? Okay.
Exactly. So that's part of why my journey took so long, I feel like, to kind of understand that I could connect and had been the entire time. Unfortunately, about 7 months after that, two young boys that I'd known since childhood also were in a car accident and passed away. So again,
So that must have
yeah,
just rocked your community, living in a small community like that.
absolutely. And this one was right kind of down the road from my childhood home. So I knew the area very well. And it did. It really kind of, it shook everybody. And death had been kind of so real within the community at that point, even for young people. So it really impacted me to think, wow, death can happen at any point. I mean, I knew that, but when it happens to you, it's different. After that, I kind of really dove into spirituality and wanting to learn more about it. So when I went to college that September, one of my new classmates, it turns out his mom was a medium. So he ended up connecting me with her because my friend's mom had actually gone to see her as well. So after that, I thought, okay, yeah, I'd love to go as well and kind of see what comes through. I was there for about an hour and a half. I cried and I laughed and I just thought there's no way this person would know these details. These are things that nobody knew about but Chantel and I.
So she was connecting to your friend Chantel
So
directly.
she
Okay.
connected directly to my friend Chantel, and also her younger sister came through just a little bit here and there, little details. But I was so focused on Chantel and in my grief at that point that some of the messages weren't really aligning. And, I'd say a few weeks later, it was that, oh, that's what that meant. And I suddenly understood. But when you're in the moment, sometimes it's a lot to process. So some things, it's just not going to make sense. One example was she kept saying the number 16. And I go, that doesn't make sense to me. Haley's 16th birthday was in December, and I got a reading done in November.
Right.
Right. So it
Oh.
was one of those moments where I just hadn't clued into what was coming up. Again, after that, I continued seeing different psychics and different mediums, as well as the same psychic I had gone to, and continued my career with college, things like that.
What were you taking in college?
So I was taking culinary management in college. That was a 2-year course. So after that, I ended up with a caterer for about a year. And then I ended up in a long-term nursing facility. And about a month and a half later, my grandfather ended up in the home as well. And he had Alzheimer's. So it worked out really well for me to be able to have that time with him on a different level. So I really feel I was meant to be there for more than one reason in my career. And he ended up passing away in 2018. And I was there during his passing. So that was the first time I've kind of been through a passing that way. And in that moment, I knew my grandmother, who passed when I was 5, I knew she was there. The room was full of people, including my grandfather's new wife of like 20 years. But I somehow, again, just knew in my heart and my soul that my grandmother's soul was waiting for him. And this was confirmed by another reader years later, because I didn't tell anybody about that. So again, a lot of different experiences. One thing I do like to talk about is in 2013, I did a past life regression session. And this is where I really started to have a better understanding of everything, I would say.
For the listeners who might not know what it is, can you explain what a past life regression session is?
Yeah. So for a past life regression session, I connected with someone who is a practitioner who puts us into a hypnotic state. And at that point, he walks us and guides us through different past lives. We also get to connect to some of our future, see what's going to come through that way, as well as meeting at least one of our spirit guides, and often talking to our loved ones on the other side as well as just kind of however the session flows, because everyone's a bit different. So for me, I had never done any meditation by this point, no kind of visualizing. I didn't really understand that stuff yet. So this was very new to me, and got on the table, I got comfortable, and he started walking me through it. And instantly I was up in the clouds and I was relaxed. And he told me to look down at my feet. And suddenly I was in different shoes. And this is where we began the past life from there, of just kind of asking, different things. What do I see? And walked me through that past life. So I had a really good understanding of what my soul had been through during that lifetime. I can tell you a little bit about it, but it is, I try to keep some of it to myself.
Sure. Yeah. Whatever you'd like to share. We're interested.
Sure. Yeah. So this one was very much finding myself alone, and that most of my tribe had already disappeared or was perishing in a fire at that moment. So that was pretty extreme to see as a very first life as well. But I really understood why and how the alone part connected to this lifetime as well. As there was a lot more to it. And I'll just kind of leave it at that for that first life. But then after that, I went into a different past life where I kept describing it as this perfect life. It was the only word I could think of. It's perfect. I have the perfect house and the perfect family, the perfect parents. Everything was just perfect. The perfect career. Everything seemed to just work out for me in that lifetime, to the point where I was bored and said, I don't want to see anymore. I want to go to another life.
Oh, interesting. You're like, this movie is boring.
Absolutely. Yeah. My soul just kind of knew, like, yeah, that was again, a perfect life, as I kept calling it, right down to the perfect husband, perfect children, grandchildren, the whole thing. So I was very quick to just kind of skip through that life, but thankful and grateful to see that life as well, especially after the first life I had experienced. So then jumping into, I did get to end up meeting my spirit guide at that point, my main spirit guide. So that's where that connection began back in 2013. And I've been working with this guide ever since, especially during my readings, as well as having my friend Chantel. If you notice, I point to my left here, because she comes in on my left side all the time. So she's here to help guide me as well. And she was a huge part of my overall spiritual journey.
Can you walk us through meeting your guide for the first time and who your guide is? And did you see them? Did you hear them? Did you just have this knowing? Was it telepathic communication? Like, walk us through all the details.
Okay. Yeah. So for this one, he told me to just kind of, again, relax. And now I'm in, close my eyes, and I'm in a black room. There's just nothingness. Okay. If you've seen Stranger Things, it was kind of like that, in the black abyss. And after that, he said, do you feel anything? And I said, I feel something behind my right shoulder. It's getting a little bit closer, and it feels closer. It feels really strong. And suddenly he says, okay, well, is it a male or a female? Without even thinking, I just said, it's a male. I just knew all of these things in those moments. After that, he says, okay, can you feel anything else? Can you call your spirit guide in and ask them to step forward for you? Sure. So I did that in my mind. And all of a sudden there was the most enormous energy stepped forward. I was so overwhelmed with it. And he said, okay, now do you see anything? And I said, I can see red, and I see scales, and I see the wings. And all of a sudden I zoomed out, and it was a massive red dragon. So again, for me, this was all kind of, whoa, what? I didn't know that was even possible, especially at that point. So again, that's a story I don't usually tell too many people unless I know that they're going to be aligned with what I'm kind of talking about. Because after that, again, I do have other guides that are not of this earthly being, as well as, I have family members and, again, my friend, who kind of step in and out depending on what I'm going through in my life. And again, depending on what I'm reading for somebody or not. I do specifically connect with my main guide for every one of those sessions, as well as for extra protection.
Okay. So this was your main guide. Do you have a name for him?
I do, but I kind of keep that a little bit more private.
That's okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, those are things that I'm still, again, as a self-taught psychic medium, I'm still working on certain aspects of everything, I guess, and how to understand it and control it.
So this is 2013. You're in this past life regression. And if this seems far-fetched to you, the listener, there is an incredible book. I don't know if you've read it, Hilary, Many Lives, Many Masters. Oh, it is so phenomenal. So this gentleman, and his name, the author, his name is escaping me, but he was a clinical psychologist, and he was working with this woman who had 1,000 phobias, and they were doing talk therapy. And honestly, the talk therapy was making it worse, and they were trying everything. He stumbled into past life regression. One day, he was just trying to take her back in a hypnotic state to early childhood. He thought it must be early childhood. It must be something that happened to her, some sort of trauma that she blacked out and forgot about. And so he was trying to just regress her back to early childhood memories. She started going back to past lives, which he didn't even know was a thing. So they just stumbled upon it. And then every time they did it, she would let go of a phobia, because she would realize that in a past life, something traumatic happened to her. Maybe she was afraid of fires because in a past life she had been in a fire, or her house had burned down. And they kept doing this until they got rid of all of her phobias. And it completely shifted his life as a doctor and as a psychologist. And so he's written many books since. It is so fascinating. But if you're somebody who just can't really wrap your mind around the potential of past lives, or that we can access those things, and you're curious about it, I would highly recommend that book. But that's really, really cool. So back to your story, Hilary. You're 2013, you're having this experience. Coming out of that, how did that session change you, or change the trajectory of your life?
Absolutely. And I just want to go back quickly and say also Dolores Cannon, very similar. And she dove in, and that's how a lot of past lives were also discovered. So for anybody else who's looking, that's who I kind of connect with and base a lot of my background on.
Very cool.
During the past life regression, I was also able to connect with my friend Chantal, who had passed away, and my grandmother. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was telepathically connected to them and communicating, or that I was feeling sensations. I thought it was maybe the practitioner, somehow he was doing this, not realizing, understanding that that was mediumship even back then. So again, I really like to tell people how much I didn't understand what I was experiencing until it was openly talked about. And I kind of went, oh, now I understand myself. But back to the past life regression. After this, I was able to then, I'm not sure how to describe this part, but at one point, the practitioner kind of walked me through higher dimensions. And at this point, I didn't know how far up I had gone. All I know is that at that point, I got it. I understood it. There is a God, there is a source, there's some sort of higher power than any of us can actually understand in a full concept here on Earth. And I didn't know how else to explain it. I just like that, I immediately knew. So when I came back down, he did explain to me later on that I had tapped into the 7th and 8th dimension at that point, which to me was incredible because I still didn't know much about any of that. But again, from that moment, it did really change a lot of how I lived my life, because I had a better understanding of who I was on a soul level. As you explained, there was a lot of fears and phobias that can be tied into our past lives. So understanding those past lives helped me to understand part of why I was experiencing things in this lifetime. And then as my spirituality grew, I was able to now look back on my entire life and connect all the dots on how I got to here, which is why I love being able to share my story and help others see that they can connect as well.
I'm fascinated, and I want to get back to that with mediumship, because I have heard that on multiple occasions. So let's chat about that. But you had that experience 2013, 2018, you lose your grandfather. When he passed, did you have any sort of paranormal, unexplainable experiences with him and his passing as well?
He did. So by this point, I had both of my daughters. So I would see orbs around a lot on the video cameras or taking photos, things like that, especially after my friend passed as well. So after that, I was always a little more on the lookout for signs or different experiences. So one night I was in the kitchen and I was tidying up, and the kids were upstairs getting ready for bed with their dad. And I was just, reaching, putting dishes in the cupboard. And all of a sudden there was this warmth that came over me. And I felt my grandfather hug me from behind and just squeeze me so tight. And I smelled his cologne and I heard him start to whisper in my ear. And I wish now that I could remember the message. I just know it was so important at that moment, but I can't remember it now. And I just burst into tears, not even just tearing up, but full on sobbing. And I'm one who doesn't like to cry much, especially back then. I like to just try to bottle it up, not understanding how healing it was. So in that moment, I just was shocked. But again, I just went, wow, okay, he's here. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that my grandfather's with me. Again, as I had mentioned, he had Alzheimer's at the end. And with me working there, I saw him day in and day out. And so I saw his progression worsen over time to the point where he didn't know who any of us were. So to have that special moment after his passing just solidified for me that he was still around. This was a very significant passing for me. And then it was in November of that year, his second wife and my grandmother as well passed away. So again, more grief kind of coming through. And so she was also there to help give me signs along the way.
Okay, so she when she passed on, she was also sending you messages.
Yeah, a lot of signs were coming through in just repeating numbers and especially music. I love listening to music. It really kind of calms me down and things like that. And I would, when you hear a certain lyric and you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your soul, you get goosebumps and the chills. That is them. That's their soul coming through to be with you. Even when you think of them, they're right there with you. So she was definitely in there a lot, and she was a singer and loved music as well. So it was really nice to connect that way with her.
Beautiful. So at this point, you're having these really profound experiences with people who have passed on since you were a child, but you're not really necessarily thinking that it's these crazy things or that it's out of the ordinary or other people aren't having them or that it's this gift. So when do you transition into claiming mediumship and coming into your gifts?
So, I think it was about the end of 2018, somewhere into 2019. I had to have some physiotherapy done. And the very first time I walked into the room, the physiotherapist, greeted me. She was super nice. We connected immediately. Her energy was incredible. But I kept hearing cancer, cancer, cancer. I, what is that? I didn't understand it. Where's this coming from? I just kind of ignored it and, thought it was normal. I went to more sessions, things like that for a few more months. And then that was that. And about a year later, I stumbled across her Instagram page where she was talking all about her journey with terminal cancer. So that kind of was like, wow, okay, there's something else going on. And by this point, again, I had really started diving into more of my spirituality and learning about all the clairs and how we connect with spirit as the extra senses, and just, again, dealing with my own grief as well, and dealing with, being a mom of young kids and life as it goes. And then, the shutdown of the world pretty much during COVID-19 there. That's when it really hit, because that's when I was stuck at home, just like everybody else. And I had a lot of time to kind of just be by myself. And I noticed that there was this female spirit who would not leave me alone. And at this point, I still didn't quite know how to explain it, but I knew she was there. I knew exactly who she wanted to talk to, but I'd never done this before. And I'm like, I can't do this. Who do I think I am? At that point. So I kind of left it.
How was she coming in? Could you physically see her? Could you hear her? Was it a knowing, a sensing, all of
Yeah.
it?
Thanks for asking that, actually. I tend to forget to explain that sometimes. So for me, especially, I feel the energy. So I knew she was in my energy field very, very strongly. And it was this inner knowing, which is claircognizance, that I knew it was her sister. I knew who this woman was without even having to ask. And again, asking who she was connected to. I just knew. And again, it was more of an on my end going, well, I don't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. An entire year passes and this woman is still with me.
And who is she?
This is a sister of a girl that I went to high school with. I didn't know this girl very well at all. I did know at the time that her sister had passed, but that was it. Her sister lived in another city and nothing was made publicly known about her passing. And at this point, I can't remember if we were actually friends on Facebook or not. So I did end up reaching out to her on this, particular day. And I just said, I hope this is okay. And I've never done this before. And I actually haven't since with reaching out without permission. But I just said, I feel like your sister is with me. Is it okay if we talk for a little bit? And she just said, absolutely. So we started talking, and it turns out it was the 1-year anniversary of her sister's passing was that day. So now I know why she was so insistent on that day, where I got to the point where I need to get out of my own comfort zone and just reach out. I will be, for privacy's sake, I will skip a lot of the details, but there was so much accuracy that came through on how her sister passed that it was even difficult for me to kind of go, how did I know that? And where did that information come from? But what was more important was that I was able to help answer questions for her family and to help give them closure, at least a little bit, in terms of what was happening in those moments. Because again, right down to the detail of how this person was found, how they passed away, that the whole aspect of it. Again, something I would not have known. And again, those very private details. After that, I said, I need to do something with this. I cannot keep that to myself anymore. And I got it in that moment. And that was about 2021 was when it finally was like, okay, this is it. So again, my journey took a long time for me to go, okay. My spirit guides by that point, I feel like, just pushed me to do it.
That's incredible. And it would have been so confirming for you, just getting all of that feedback of the messages that you're providing, the downloads that you're getting. It's all being confirmed by the sister. And so that builds your confidence to start trusting what you're getting.
Yeah. At that point too, I texted all on Messenger. I didn't do a video or anything, no face-to-face for extra energy or anything, because I was too nervous, if I'm being honest. So I've gotten a lot further in how I do my readings and now doing online as well as hosting events and things like that. But it did take me a long time to kind of get there. And once I got there, I practiced, I think it was about a month and a half straight of doing free readings every day, solely mediumship at that point as well. And again, all the validations were coming back, bang on, bang on, bang on. And it was more just me trying to understand, is it a female? Is it a male? What are they trying to show me? In this case, I can explain that as well. When they show me something, it's often like a little movie clip in my mind's eye, or sometimes it's like a little picture of someone's past or even the present. I also get, again, the inner knowing, that sense, that those gut feelings, as a lot of people call it as well. I can also physically feel things, not as often, thankfully, because that one is a little bit trickier to deal with, I find.
Feel things. What's an example of feeling things?
So if someone, for example, one of the readings I did, I started to feel a lot of pressure on my chest and I felt very constricted. And as I was explaining the rest of it, it then came out that her husband had been crushed by a tractor. So he was under. So that to me was a whoa, because I don't always get the physical. So now that I am, that's a new step for me to kind of learn as well. And working with my guides as well. And each spirit who comes in is different as well.
So you have, it sounds like the way you're describing it, you have your guides and, say the loved one who's passed, multiple people are coming to you and communicating different things.
Yes. I have multiple that come through. Basically, I'm sure you've heard this term before. Once the light is on, spirit comes. They're all going to come because they know you can communicate. So they're like, hey, pick me, I'm here. Again, so I had to really learn how to put my boundaries up and say, okay, I'm working right now or I'm not. And energetically protecting myself, putting my shields up. Again, working with my guide to know that I'm getting the proper and accurate information. Mediumship is definitely a little different than psychic, because psychic, there's not really any validation in that moment.
Right, because it's this future thing that's going to happen.
Yes.
Right, so they're just like, okay, maybe, oh, right.
Yes, exactly. So, now that I've been reading since 2021, I have enough clients that I've read for, that things have come through and come to fruition, that it's really, again, boosted my confidence in going, okay, that is what I was seeing, because I will never be 100% accurate. No psychic ever will be. Timelines are constantly changing. And we have our free will on top of that. So if I tell you something, you could go out and do the complete opposite just because. You know what I mean? So at the time, it was a little trickier to kind of do the psychic. I preferred to do the mediumship. But as I started going, the psychic just came through.
Okay. Can you talk to us about that transition of, so you're in 2021 and you're committed to this and you start giving these free readings and you're getting a lot of validation and you're straight. And when you say you're self-taught, it's because you've just practiced on so many times and it's almost you're working with your guides to strengthen your gifts. Do you feel like every time you did it, you were getting stronger and better at it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially our third eye is very much like working out a muscle. So the more we use it, the stronger we will absolutely get. So that's why it took me so long, because I had a lot of other things going on in my life. And grief in itself can block signs sometimes. Sometimes it can make them super obvious too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so for that transition, again, it was just kind of, it started coming through a little bit. And as I mentioned before, with the two younger boys that had passed away, I did meet with one of the moms and we talked and different things, and things came through on my end that also weren't publicly known, that she confirmed and validated for me. And with her background and kind of what she had known, she was the one that said, "You're ready for this. You're ready to charge. You're ready to start your business," because I had explained I wanted to keep doing this. And so it was that moment that I said, okay, I'm okay to do this now. And I just kind of dove in full force. Again, I had young children at the time, so dealing with that was a lot. But again,
Oh, yeah.
spirit had my back. So that's one thing I absolutely trusted. And they've always had my back. So I've continued to push through despite all the challenges over the years that I've had, because the amount of people that I can help makes all of it worth it.
Oh my gosh. It's such profound God's work in my mind. If you can give
Absolutely.
somebody healing or just give their heart a little bit of rest and reprieve from the grief that people hold, I just think it's so beautiful. And you don't have to obviously give names or backgrounds or anything, but if you have any specific examples of readings that you've done and validation that you've received, would you be comfortable sharing some of those stories?
Absolutely. So one that I have that actually happened after my friend passed away, and I didn't tell this part, was I had a vision of my friend's mom finding a binder that Chantel and I had in high school. It was just a bunch of silly notes and basically our friendship in a binder. And I had no idea what happened to it after grade 10. It was in the garbage for all I knew. But I had this vision in 2009, I think it was, towards the end there, that her mom would find this binder in a box and hand deliver it to me. But I also had this inner knowing that it was going to take 6 to 7 years for this to happen. And 6.5 years later, this binder came through and I have it right here. And as you can tell, it's a bunch of silliness from back in the day, but it's full of just our entire friendship. And that one was a huge one to me as well. And again, because it took so long for it to happen, it was another aha, wow moment. So from there, that was definitely a lot to learn and understand about. And talking my clients here, let me see. Sorry, I just closed my eyes for a second to kind of connect.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely several that stand out. There's one where I read for someone, and I had read for them previously as well, but I think a year or so before. And she wanted another reading. So I read for her, and it was online. And she says to me, so-and-so, I forget who it was, one of their family members or extended family member was terminally ill. So she said, I want to mention that right off the bat, but I'd still like to kind of just talk about things. Absolutely, right? That's part of my job, is holding space for people. And the next few months or however long might be a little rough for them. So we talked about things, and she wanted to know a bit of a timeline. So I explained, I don't do timelines. That's not for me. That's for God to decide. But I said, what I can do is ask your spirit guides if there's anything important that you need to know. So I tapped in, and this very specific date came through. And it was a few months from then, from the reading. And I explained very clearly, I said, this is not the date that they are going to pass away. I said, but this date is very significant and you need to pay attention to it. You need to be around and home on this date. Came through very clear, very serious.
Hmm.
Kind of left it at that. I never heard from the client again. About, I want to say about a year and a half later, I was at an event in their area, and she ended up coming in to say hi to me and getting another reading, and with her daughter as well. But she wanted to tell me ahead of time. She said, that date that you told me, and of course I didn't remember by this point, so she explained it to me again. She says, the date that you told me was the date that we had to call the ambulance and they were admitted to the hospital and they didn't get to come back home from the hospital. And I cannot remember if it was a few days or a few weeks after, but they did pass away. So that one, and this was a few years ago as well now. I think it was 2024 when they passed. So yeah, it was a really big deal for me to kind of have that, because how do you tell someone that, or how do you talk about certain things about death, especially when someone hasn't actually passed away, but they are terminally ill and you know what's coming? So again, it was a really big learning curve for me in how I communicate with not only my own spirit guides and the client specifically, but also the client's spirit team on what's allowed and making that discernment for myself and not predicting something as someone's passing.
I just think of how much faith it requires on your end when you get information or dates like that to then say it out loud, and you're just like, I don't know what to do with this. Does that happen to you often, where you get this message or you see this thing and you're kind of like, I don't know if I want to say that, or I don't know what that means? Do you second guess it?
I absolutely do. Not now, I would say, nearly as much. I will question my guides on something, and I'll use my discernment on whether or not something should be said. But at the beginning, the guides were quite blunt about things. So I had to learn how to be honest with people, but in a nice, maybe comforting way a little bit. Again, every reader's different in how they communicate. So yeah, I'm trying to think. There's so many different things good things. I've predicted numerous babies, years before they've been conceived even, and right down to the gender, things like that. So that's incredible to see. I really love those moments. And being able to connect to the spirit before they've even come to the earth side is really neat. There's a lot of things in people's careers that I will end up predicting a certain opportunity coming in, or extra finances, things like that. It really just depends on what the client wants to know, what their guides are going to allow, and what I will then allow as well.
Yeah, that's a great segue. Like you mentioned it earlier about you can't be 100% correct with these psychic predictions because there are multiple timelines and there are free will. And so what do you think you're seeing then when you're sitting with somebody and you're getting some sort of psychic download?
So what I like to do with my guides is I'll ask them to initially ask their guides to show me a little bit of their past, a little bit of their present, and then we'll tap into the future in a bit, because that helps me understand who they are now and where they're actually going in their life. So I basically ask, especially if it's a first time client, for a little bit of a life review on what their life has been like. So from there, I get all kinds of signs and symbols that come through that help with my reading, which can really help me pinpoint and understand where they're at in their life. But for me, it's as simple as I connect ahead of time and I'll just ask them, what do they want to talk about? Health might come through, career, relationships. I might get a couple of numbers. And so during that, I'll sit down from there and go, okay, this is what's happening in your life so far based off of all of this. And they'll go, yeah. And then we'll continue from there. And often people are looking for guidance when they come to a psychic reader or anybody, right? They're looking for the validation on something that they already know within their heart and soul. And it's that permission to be authentic and maybe be outside the box and do something different sometimes. Because I found that a lot of people follow the career path that even myself, I was a long-term cook for 7.5 years before switching to do this. So a lot of us are transitioning from what we were kind of meant to do at the time to being where we're meant to be now. So I say that a lot in my readings that, I might see a path straight up and then I might see it kind of curve this way and this way. And then from there, I'll ask their guides, okay, well, what does this kind of mean for them? Again, I have certain specific symbols, so I'll know pretty quickly what they're referring to. And the information just comes through really quickly as well. So, yeah.
Okay. So you're kind of seeing like a probable path, like the most probable path, but they could veer off or it could shift.
Absolutely, yeah. So I often ask, what is the most likely outcome that they're going to experience based on what they're doing right now? There's always certain things in life that we're meant to hit certain milestones. So no matter how we choose to get there, we're still going to get there. So again, there's certain points in the reading where I may say this is going to happen no matter what. But again, you can choose how you get there. I often, instead of seeing infinite timelines, it's kind of shut way down to just one or two. And then from there, I'll kind of go, okay, well, and it's just an inner knowing by that point. It's very quick how it comes through.
Okay.
And it's trusting my guides are giving the right information.
Right. And I feel like that would have been so difficult at the beginning. Like, did you ever question it, thinking, is this just my imagination? Am I making this up?
Absolutely. Definitely thought that maybe I was crazy or making things up and imagining it. And again, I thought maybe it was just normal and that other people experienced, such as the cancer. I thought other people experienced that. Now I understand people don't always experience that the same. But yeah, it was very much being scared to put myself out there and talk about my spirituality because so far anyone I had really talked about, other than a very small group of people, were very negative about the experiences, including my past life regressions and things that I felt very deeply proud of and wanted to talk about and experience. And it just wasn't received well. So I often say if I kind of didn't talk to that family anymore, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Hilary, that is so relatable. And unfortunately, this is such a common theme with all of my guests, where it's like we're experiencing these magnificent, beautiful, incredible things, and then it falls flat on whoever we share. Or they're just like, you're crazy, you're weird, don't talk about that. And so, if you are listening, this podcast is for you. This is the reason we have this podcast, is to normalize this conversation. And so that you know that it is common, it is happening, you aren't crazy, and it's beautiful and you can be excited about it.
Exactly. That was one thing I really wanted to do by putting myself out there is showing other people they're not alone, because of things I experienced in my past as well as other people. Sometimes we can shut down our emotions or different things, but we have that extra sensory and we don't even know what it is. And then often we're put on medications and we have mental illnesses or different things when that's not necessarily the case. So I know for certain I was very nervous about coming out to people and saying, hey, I talk to dead people. Now, I don't necessarily hear their voices or see them, but I still communicate with them in some sort of capacity. And some people will just not understand that still, and that's okay. I'm okay with that.
And that's something that you said before, and I have heard it before, is that, everyone can do this and it's available to anyone. So, for somebody listening who might want to, but feels a little frustrated by that, and you're like, okay, what? What do you mean by that? How? What do you mean by that? And how?
You know what? It's as simple as me telling my story and saying, if I can do it, you can too. And the reason I say that is because I had so many experiences my whole life and I just didn't know it. So, how many people are out there that are also experiencing these similar experiences and they just don't know that's their intuition or that's their spirit guide? You decide to take a different path one day for whatever reason. That's your spirit guides protecting you from something else that could be happening. It happens so quickly. There's so many different ways to kind of get information or messages. And one of the biggest things is just try, simply ask, say, depending who you want to communicate with, you want to ask your guide, say, can you communicate with me? And just sit with yourself and see if a name comes in. And instead of judging it, just say, okay, and take it for what it is. Let every thought kind of pass through as it's going. And it's definitely about learning to just trust things as well. You have to be very self aware of your own body to then be able to understand energy. So, knowing the awareness of your own body first, and then going from there, because we all have an energetic field. So, by putting out your arms and stretching as far as you can, just kind of moving them around and feeling, trying to feel if you can feel that energy. One thing I love to do when I learned how to do this, I thought it was really neat. Not that I do Reiki or anything, but, simply rubbing your hands together for a few minutes, heating that up. And as you pull away, do you feel that energy coming through? And then again, it's about asking your loved ones for signs and messages and say, hey, come in my dreams or show me a specific sign. That way I know it's you. And as you start to get the validation, the confirmation, you can start to trust yourself more. So for me, as my life continued on and things kept happening, I began to trust myself more. And same with as I did readings, a lot of predictions, for let's instance, a lot of predictions came through and they came true. So it was like, okay, I am doing right on that part. And again, the mediumship is definitely a little different. And that in itself is a whole other energetic and emotional boundary to kind of experience, because you're picking up on people crying right in front of you as you talk about their loved one and how their loved one passed, right down to the very intimate moments of something, being able to tap into somebody's childhood where something horrible happened, let's say, that they haven't told anybody, but I'm a stranger and now I know this and I'm talking about it. It can be pretty overwhelming. So yeah, it's just kind of, I take every reading as I go because again, every spirit's going to be different.
When I was going through my process of potentially going down like the mediumship route, and I did take a course on it, and at one point it was something that I wanted to do, I remember reading this blog. And this woman said, nobody ever asked me if I was born a watercolor painter. And yet we assume, you have to be born with this gift as a medium. And yes, there are people who are born with it, just like there are savants that are born with, artistic ability and any type of ability. But just like watercolor painting or sculpting or whatever kind of creative pursuit, if you want to do it and you have that desire and you put in the time, like you said, it's a muscle that the more you use it, the stronger you get. And so it's this thing of like, if somebody's listening and they want to explore mediumship, you might just have to put in the time and do a course on it and practice just like you would if you were learning how to watercolor paint.
Exactly. And that's, one thing that I have definitely experienced in the spiritual community because I am self-taught and I didn't take a bunch of courses. I had almost a bit of backlash from certain other spiritual practitioners and had to almost prove myself, I guess. Doing events at the local metaphysical store, I had someone drive over an hour to get a reading done by me and then started questioning me on things, right down to what are their spirit guides and who are they. And as I continued to the reading, they were kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. So I definitely had to experience that as well. So again, it's just learning to keep trusting yourself. And my guides have been really there to push me and say, this is what you're meant to do. Over the years, I have seen myself doing things like this, even being on podcasts as well and telling my story. But at the time, I'm going, what stories? What am I going to be talking about?
Oh, you would see it as a vision ahead of time, like I'm going to be doing this. Oh,
yeah. So that's one thing I will say that has really helped me to keep my faith and trust in myself and belief in my guides as well and kind of the universe and what's happening in life because I've seen different visions for my own future that have then happened. And now I'm like, oh, okay, I just have to wait for it. So for example, is the having my own business. I do exactly what I saw myself doing, but it took a long time to get there. And it was something that I was not expecting at all. And, now that I'm here, it's okay, my guides show me something else. And I'm going, how am I going to get there? And I've said this exact same thing to my clients when something comes through for them and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, listen, you're at point A right now. You know what point B is. Sometimes you're not meant to know what the in between is. You just have to live it. And then the unexpected moments and surprises come in. So over the years, I had a ton of readings and I never had anybody say to me, you can do this. You're really connected as well. Because it was part of my path to find it on my own. But now when I do my readings, I'm very quick to tell people, they're connected and things like that.
so you're connected with the other side on a daily basis. You're giving these readings. Are there any common themes or messages that you hear a lot that spirit wants us to know?
Absolutely. And this just comes from even my own meditations and channeled messages that I get for maybe myself or a collective that I might write about sometimes. But the main thing is that, life after death continues. I have time and time again had spirits take me through their entire transition. And they're so calm and at peace on the other side. And it's like waking up from a dream. Not everybody has that experience, I will say that. But for the most part, it's been very continuous that way. So there's no fear of death for me. I look forward to how I say going home. And for those who understand it, they understand that. But for now, I'm here doing what I'm doing. And that's the same for everybody else. So we're supposed to be here living a human life, experiencing life as it is. We have the free will, those choices on what we want to do with our lives. There's obviously a lot more that happens within the world that kind of dictates our lives sometimes. I was meant to do this path eventually. So my guides pushed me there no matter how I got here. So
Essentially, the common message is of like, there's life that is after death and it's going to be beautiful, and you experience and you see that people have these peaceful transitions. It sounds like our loved ones don't leave us. They don't really die. They just change form and they're with us even when we're living and they're somewhere else. Any other messages that you hear on a more regular basis, communication from someone who has passed to their loved one?
there could be very similar messages, or depending if I'm, doing an event where it's a day of readings, there can be very similar messages that may come in, or a common theme for the day. But definitely with loved ones, they often always come in with either apologies, thanking them for things they've done, and expressing their love and gratitude. There's a lot that doesn't always get said in the physical world, and to be able to have that confirmation and that those maybe more difficult conversations after they've passed can actually really give a lot of closure and healing to people, to both the spirit soul and to our souls here on earth. It's very much, and I'll even say to my readers, this is a bit of a similar message of I'm sorry, but then once I explain why they're saying sorry and how it connects to them, it suddenly all makes sense. So I've learned to not dismiss the message, even if it's a similar message each time. But yeah, again, the main thing is to just keep loving each other, support each other, be your most authentic self, live life to the fullest, what brings you the most excitement and joy, and live your passion, and be you again, like be your most authentic self.
I love that. Thank you. Hilary, I think it would be really fun, and we talked about this ahead of time, if you could do a reading for me, a little psychic mediumship reading. So I'd love to transition to that if you're open to it.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you need for me to set this up properly, or how should we go into this and transition to this?
So the only thing that I require from you is to just kind of set your intentions on what want to come through, or if there's someone that you would like to connect with. I
Sure.
always start by asking my clients if they've done anything like this before. It helps me to kind of understand where they're at on a spiritual level. So if I'm talking about something starseed related and they have no idea, or they'll completely understand it. So
I'm totally open. I'm totally open to all this stuff. I'm very interested. I've spoken to mediums before. I've had a psychic reading a long time ago, but I have. And I will say out loud that my intention is just any message that my guides or loved ones have for me. I'm totally open for my highest good. And I'll just keep in mind maybe loved ones who I would love to communicate with if they feel like coming through.
there's already a male here. So, pardon me, that's how quickly they can come in. So, I'm just going to connect a little bit more on my end first. So, I got dad, but then I also get grandfather. So, I feel like this could just be the connection. Are they both passed, or is it just dad's dad passed?
My dad's dad has passed, yeah.
And you were quite close with him. I feel like there's a connection here. That's why he's stepping forward as well.
Yeah, there's a connection for sure. He's come to me and my family multiple times since he's passed. So
Okay.
I was kind of joking around while I was getting ready this morning that he should come through.
Amazing. Well, and that's how
Yeah.
how quickly they do come through, right? Because they already know that that's, they set this up for us essentially.
Mhm.
They definitely know. Yeah, he's happy to be here. He's excited for you. I mean, I know this podcast is kind of a newer thing for you, so he's definitely talking about just the transitions and changes, things that you've had to do with working towards all of that as well. There's definitely been a few milestones that he's missed, he says. I feel like he's been gone for quite a few years now, but he says he only physically missed it. He was very much there in the spirit as well. Did you actually have a physical chair set out for him for certain occasions as well?
Not me personally, no.
Well, was there someone else within the family as well that might have had a chair? There's just something, it's almost like that's where he sits. That was known to be his spot, is kind of what I'm seeing. More almost at the dinner tables, things like that.
Okay, I don't know. I'll have to ask my dad about that one, but yeah, he definitely had a specific chair that I remember
Okay.
in certain places, but more in his home or in our family cottage.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably what he's wanting to talk about then, is just the specific chair, because I feel like he's still sitting there, is what he's kind of saying. And he's just relaxing. He's around, you know. He kind of jokes. He's like, you travel a lot. So he's kind of trying to travel around with you. So I don't know how much traveling you're doing or this or that. But, you know, there's definitely, even if it's just like shorter trips, there's a lot of
Hmm.
movement. So he keeps
Yeah.
joking about that because he says he likes going with you on trips. He definitely shows sandy beaches as well. So I'm not sure if you're going to a sandy beach anytime soon or have been recently, but he's just wanting to bring that up because he's.
I just got back from Mexico.
Oh, okay, perfect. I was saying he's wanting to bring up things that have just recently happened or will be, just to show how much he's still around you. You know, I read for someone the other day and we talked about, you know, our mom's been gone since 2012 and it was so strong still. So time does not change how our spirit and loved ones come through. So let me see. He stands really tall now. So he's just, again, that, you know, older gentleman. He's proud. He's, you know, very like respectful. It's almost like suit and just, you know, a proper gentleman, he says. He kind of keeps almost, I don't think he wore a tie all the time, but he keeps adjusting it almost. So I feel like there was a bit more of a relaxed side to him too, though, where he could take the tie off and just kind of be that more fun grandfather version. I feel like he was pretty strict at times, though, as well.
Hmm.
Again, this could be just generational where things were different, and can definitely have been passed on to your dad and then again, even into your family as well, right?
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, there's definitely, I'll keep it private, but there's definitely things that you've experienced in your childhood as well that have just been, you know, kind of pushed down through the generations. But I do feel like things have been working and healing as you're healing as well. So I have to say this, oftentimes there's usually a generational curse breaker within the family lineage somewhere. And I feel very strongly that that's what you're meant to be doing right now, and healing and the path that you've been on. I feel like you've been on this journey for at least a few years. There was very much this, you know, even for myself, we all have that catalytic moment when something changes in our lives and we open up a bit more. So, well, you guys had a bit of a physical and emotional distance towards the end as well, though, with your grandfather?
Yeah, like we never lived in the same place. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, because there's a bit of a physical distance, but there's a bit of emotional distance too. So what I mean by that is just maybe you wouldn't have talked, you know, every single day. You wouldn't have had that same kind of closeness as somebody else. This could also be because physical distance, and I'm hearing things he was experiencing. Okay.
Yeah. He passed. I don't know how much you want me to say.
Yeah,
Do you just
whatever
want me
you
to say
feel.
yes
Yeah,
and
whatever you feel
no?
comfortable saying. Yeah, fine.
Yeah, like I mean, I'll just say yes. We'll just say that and then I can tell you
Sure.
afterwards.
Yeah.
But I don't want to like anchor the reading.
Yeah. No,
I'm
that's
usually bad at
okay.
that. I'm just like start talking, so I'm just going to hang back.
I often tell people I'm putting a puzzle together and I don't always have the pieces. So as long as you understand it, that's the most important part to me for, you know, your own privacy's sake too. So kind of moving forward, if you want to talk about what's kind of to come, more children
Sure.
that I always ask ahead of time if you want to know about it and if you want to know genders.
If something's coming through, I think that's really fun. Whatever's coming through
Okay.
to you, I'm open for.
Perfect. Okay. I would say I keep already picking up on a boy very, very quickly, and I feel like it's gonna happen really soon if you aren't. Like it's kind of here already. And I don't usually get that. So um that's pretty incredible. So can you resonate with that right off the hop? Because that's what I feel coming for you, like right kind of in the next, like now. Um,
I probably edit this out, but I am pregnant.
okay. Oh,
I'm I'm only a month pregnant. So it's like it's in my
congratulations.
first trimester. So, but yeah. So that's really funny. You're like, it's like happening now.
Yeah, it's all like it's now. Yeah. Because when I'm trying to connect with the spirit, they're not showing me, that they're being held in spirit up above and that they're, by your feet waiting. They're here. So that's how I can also tell for women who are waiting to conceive, having maybe some issues or things like that. I have even helped people who struggled and, they didn't know if they should do IVF or not. And it came through very clearly. It's going to happen natural. Just wait. And it did. And I had no idea. And it was about 2 years later, they came to the store. They drove over 2 hours to come to the store and show me this little baby they had had. So yeah,
Oh,
it was incredible.
that's so special to get that validation.
Yes, yes, definitely. Those are one of my highlights, I would say. I love babies. Okay, so we'll kind of skip past that
So you're
one.
seeing, well, I'm just curious. So you're seeing, you think it may be a
I
boy?
do see, I'm seeing a boy because you already
A
have a
boy.
girl, so I definitely see a boy. And we will see. Did you have a miscarriage as well before? Okay. So I was going to say, because I feel another spirit as well. So there's two. Okay. So let me see. Okay. I keep hearing mommy's waiting for me to come back. Okay. Mommy's waiting for me to come back. So I just want to see who's who right now. Because there's so what I'm doing right now, because they're also showing me the spirit, the baby spirit by your feet, but also the one that's coming. So I'm just trying to kind of separate them at the moment, just to kind of see who's who and if the first baby is actually coming back in this round or the next child. Okay. So I'm just kind of trying to see here. Yes. Okay. I very much feel this baby right now. And mommy's waiting for me to come back. Okay. Um, I'm also hearing like you just weren't ready yet, and that's okay. What the entire thing wasn't meant to happen yet. Okay. I am
Mhm.
so sorry that happened. Please know that the souls are more than okay. More than anything, they volunteer and they say, hey, I know I'm not going to actually be here, but I know I'm going to be loved and I'm going to be okay during this experience, and I want to help them have that lesson so that they can learn from that lesson and heal and be able to move forward. Right. That's a very big
Mhm.
importance, is what I'm hearing as well for you, is being able to move forward. Okay. Now, did you have any sort of complications with your first as well? Or,
Yeah,
okay.
we did. Yeah. Yeah. At her birth.
So the reason I asked that is just because they very quickly flashed me with my daughter in my first birth. She was born premature and had some complications. So I asked that. That's how my guide sometimes will give me other experiences, okay, to help understand what you're going through. So I will tap in because I know this is a very sensitive subject with this new one. So I have to say right off the bat, she's a sweetheart. Oh my goodness, she's adorable. Your little daughter, she's just beaming and bright, and she's funny and full of like, I don't want to say full attitude, but like sass and just knows
Yeah.
lots. Like but I feel like she's got a
Yeah.
good head on her shoulders. Like I know it's kind of the age and she's still learning and things, but yeah, amazing.
Mhm.
I keep hearing very quickly, sorry, I keep hearing she's going to do really good things in life. Okay. So you're very
Yay.
much, again, it's part of that generational healing. Also able to help heal your inner child, right? Many of us are when we become parents. We have the option to, I should say. And I definitely am getting that
Yes.
you're doing things different. And overall, I have to validate too, like, you're doing an amazing job. Okay. We as moms criticize ourselves so much. You're doing incredible. Please keep doing what you're doing. I'm hearing, despite what some people might say or think.
That
Negative.
means more to me than you know.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Right? You're doing incredible, okay? And again, moving forward, it's going to be the same thing. Please know how important this next pregnancy, baby, soul, this next entire patch of your life, how important it is. Okay. Is there anything else you kind of want to know or anything?
I mean, I guess the only clarity that I had is the soul so I had a miscarriage after my daughter. So in October, I just had a miscarriage. So are you saying that that is the same spirit that's coming next?
I do feel very strongly, yes.
Okay.
Mommy's waiting for me to come back around. Now that baby can come back around is what I'm doing,
Okay.
right? So yeah, that's just part of what I do. For the mediumship, I definitely like to do a lot longer time frame. There's
Yeah,
a lot more to come
right,
through, but so yeah, that's just
right.
quick.
No, this was really cool. Thank you. And I know we just kind of like put you on the spot here. Let's jump into
No,
it,
it's okay.
but
I
that's
love
really
it.
cool. I do want to validate you though, like bringing in my grandfather and just the chair thing is really interesting because so they were older grandparents. Like my grandfather died when he was 86 and I was 14 years old. So I know them, like my memories of them are like old people, right? Like and I remember he had his chair and he had his like almost like a back protector, if that makes sense. Like he would drive with it and then he'd have it in his chair and it was, it was his chair because he had his like back support thing on it.
Amazing.
And so then when you said he's standing tall, I just thought that was so, because he totally was like more hunched and like shorter, at the end when I knew him, the memories that I have of him were when he was elderly. And then the emotional and physical distance, yes, because I didn't live in the same city as them. And so I'd see them a few times a year and I absolutely loved my grandparents, but we didn't have that close relationship because I only saw them a few times a year. But I have such great memories with them. Like I love them and so much love there. But you're right, like the emotional and physical distance, 100%. Yeah. And then, I mean, the spirit, I mean, you were bang on with the miscarriage and with the pregnancy. So that's really cool. I'm so happy we connected. Thank you for walking us through your story. Thank you for explaining mediumship a little bit more. And thank you so much for this reading. That was so fun. If people want to connect with you, they want to get their own reading, how can they connect with you? Let them know the channels that they can find you.
Yeah, so you can definitely find me on Facebook and Instagram at, Hills the Medium 555. And I also have my website is www.hillsthemedium.ca. All my information and my services, prices are all on there. I'm currently working on a new booking system. So for right now, you might just have to message me or email me for me to get you in. But other than that, yeah, it should be up and running again soon where you can book for yourself depending on the dates. I do online readings through Zoom. I've done readings all across Canada, the US, internationally. People always wonder about the energy and how that works. I find energy is energy, and I'm still able to connect, as you saw. You're across the country, and we're still able to connect spiritually.
Right. Amazing. Oh, well, I will have everything in the show notes. Hilary, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it as well.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Meant to Be Heard. If this episode resonated, please share it with a friend, rate the podcast, and hit follow so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at You're Meant to Be Here with a 2. New episodes drop Mondays. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you're meant to be here.